At Chris Kehler Holistic, we demonstrate real healing and real caring to your health issues and needs. Our solution for you is an alternative to the alternative. Our out-of-the-box treatment methods are aimed to your specific well-being and are quite different than most. Venturing down the realm of quantum energy healing, Chris uses unique modalities of healing, such as spiritual intervention with pendulum dowsing, sacred geometry tools such as the neutralization, divinity, and sun ring. Another tool Chris uses is a 5-tiered pyramid affectionately known as the Silver Light Pyramid to activate quantum activity within the body. Also, Chris Kehler Holistic uses radionic technologies in various platforms with specific liquid mineral ionics to balance out excesses and deficiencies within the body. At Chris Kehler Holistic, our goal is to get tangible and measurable results in the least amount of time possible so you can carry on with what's important in your life. Another advantage to this unique energy healing is that it can be done at a distance healing session. So location is not a barrier and can be done conveniently at your home, office, just about anywhere through Skype or telephone conferencing. Eliminate costly protocols, expensive monthly supplements, high-priced allopathic operations, invasive surgeries, and dubious medication applications that keep you trapped in a financial and health rat race. Get a specific, customized, out-of-the-box solution tailored for your health recovery. At Chris Kehler Holistic, we are warm welcoming and want to put you at ease with your visit to us. Please visit www.chriskehler.net for further information as we welcome your questions and inquiries to starting this unique journey. At Chris Kehler Holistic, we want to show you that we are the alternative to the alternative and the out-of-the-box solution to customize an answer for you to spend less and gain more in your high vibrancy journey. Visit www.chriskehler.net. Real healing and real caring to your health needs.
Mr. Chris Kehler.
I am your host for tonight, Chris Kehler, coming to you live from wonderful Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Now, we got an interesting show tonight. I've got a co-host. We're going to be doing the show with Mr. Ryan Singer. Ryan is the host of his own show, Me and Paranormal You, where I've been on his show a few times, and we hit it off really well and thought it would be a really good opportunity to share a show together. Ryan, how's it going?
Hey, Chris. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. On tonight's show, we're going to be interviewing L.A. Marzulli. He's been on the show once before, and we're going to be talking about his latest effort called Watchers Night. He's got a whole series of these Watchers videos that he does, and he does this incredible Hollywood job of putting all this information together. I watched mine last night. Did you watch yours last night?
Yeah, I watched it a couple nights ago, and it was fascinating. I'm really excited to be able to have the opportunity to talk to L.A.
Awesome guy. He's great to talk to and very open and loves to share his wisdom. Now, before we get started, I got some important news. We want to welcome everybody on the planets Saturn, Mars, and Jupiter who are listening tonight. Thank you very much, all the military out there, for being here and listening to the show. It might be delayed a few seconds, and that's okay. It's pretty far away. Energy news. Everybody knows I do lots of energy clearings for healing, for helping people with health problems. And it seems like every week now, almost every day, there's something new happening, something new I'm channeling, coming in and giving me more knowledge, more information. Now, we just went through the solstice along with a full moon. Did you feel that, Ryan? Did you notice any energy changes with that?
Yeah, that was a pretty big day all around on Monday. It seemed like there was lots of activity happening. A lot of people close to me were experiencing like realizations about like, I don't know whether it was like big changes they wanted to make in their life or, I mean, the synchronicity of it all was great too. Like how it was a full moon. It was a beautiful night out here in Los Angeles, California, where I'm living, and it was pretty active. I mean, I know some things were going a little haywire for people. Like a little bit, but all in all, I think it was a pretty great night, and I'm pretty optimistic about what's in store for us all here.
Well, here's what happened on my end. Now, anytime there's an alignment like that, an eclipse, a full moon, a supermoon, and a solstice, there's an energy shift, a quantum shift, and it allows more energy to be brought in, more knowledge to be brought in. And what it enabled me to do starting this morning was I started to be able to identify and remove all artificial intelligence from people. So at first it started off that I removed the artificial intelligence out of all of the dark entities that were within people like Set, Thoth, Horus, Lucifer, and so on. Ended up just going into people's master consciousness and just being able to remove the AI. Now, you can't remove it until the alignment happens, and that's what happened. And that's what this alignment brought in, is the ability, the possibility to identify it and just move out the AI. And boy, let me tell you that the healings that went on here today are pretty much mind-blowing. Lots of really good stuff happening. Everybody I work with got instant results. So I'm really stoked about what's going to happen in the next week or two. And I'm really putting a lot of effort, a lot of energy into curing diabetes and ALS and all these really screwy big diseases that everybody has. Diabetes is a big one. I was told that diabetes is worth more money in North America than oil is in Iraq. So that's
wow.
Huge. So we're looking forward to getting there.
Yeah, the artificial intelligence thing is something that I'm hyper fascinated with right now too, especially in the news with Elon Musk just like 2 weeks ago saying that it's like a 1 in billion chance that this is not a computer simulation that we're living in. And whether or not it's like something like that, which is a whole nother discussion we don't have to get into today, and then you have like some of the other allegedly most intelligent people on the planet worried about singularity, where it's like humans fusing with artificial intelligence and artificial intelligence taking over and getting rid of the human aspect of our existence. So it's very pressing, and so I guess it makes sense to me that you're having these breakthroughs with removing artificial intelligence, because by some accounts it's 2035 or 2045 is when the singularity happens, the cyborgization of humans and computers or artificial intelligence, if you want to call it that. So it seems like, this is going to be, you're on the front lines of doing some important work here.
Going to get bigger. And the first day I always find something. There's always fine tuning a few days away that we need to do, and it always brings up something else. So looking forward to it, getting pretty stoked. Now, a little bit about our guest for tonight. L.A. Marzulli is an author, lecturer, and filmmaker. He teamed up with film producer Richard Shaw to create the Watchers series. There are now 9 installments in the series and soon to be 10. He won the UFO Best Film and the People's Choice Awards at the UFO Congress back in 2014. Marzulli is a frank supernaturalist who has lectured on the subjects of UFOs, the Nephilim, ancient prophetic texts, presenting his exhaustive research at conferences and churches, as well as appearances and interviews on numerous national and international radio and television programs. All work and materials can be accessed at his website, www.lamarzulli.net. Hey, welcome to A Quantum View again, L.A. Marzulli.
Hey, guys, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Good to be here.
So we're going to double team you tonight, if that's all right.
Oh, tag team. Okay. I'm ready.
Awesome talk about the Nephilim. And that was Watchers 8, wasn't it?
Actually, the Nephilim is more like Watchers 6, and then we unwrap the baby skull in 8. And, when we talk about the baby skull, that's a greatly elongated 18-month to 24-month skull, which we actually were able to unwrap. It was a mummy, and we unwrapped the mummy in Senior Wan's museum, which was incredible. Thanks to Chase Klotsky, Joe Taylor, Aaron Judkins, who all assisted in that. And we were able to take a sample of the wrappings and get that carbon-14 dated. And that was very interesting, how old the thing was. And we'll reveal that in Watchers 10, which is coming out in a couple of weeks. It'll be out probably mid-July, July 14th, somewhere in there. And we're very excited about it. We were also able to take some of the hair from the skull. Not just the hair would just fall off as we unwrapped it. Hair fell off. That's what we tested, and the results from that basically astonished us. And again, we'll be releasing all that once the DVD is out. You know, people, it's fine. I just want to add something to this. People say, oh, this stuff should be for free, LA, blah, 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 blah. Look, we spend hours and hours and hours and thousands of dollars going down, doing the research, getting the work. And the way, you know, I'd love to be able to do it for free, but we don't have the money other than selling DVDs to make all this happen. And that's why we have to guard the information. And then if you're really interested, you know, I mean, we'll tell you more about it, but support our work. Buy the DVD. It's $20. My gosh.
Yeah, you can spend more money doing less things. Now, the quality of your work is amazing. Ryan, you saw the DVD, The Watchers 9. It's absolutely Hollywood.
Yeah, it's really enthralling. LA, it's great to have a chance to talk with you. Sure. You know, really appreciate the work you're doing. It's great stuff. I actually have I had a friend watching the DVD with me, and it was pretty late at night when we were watching it, and he had to get up early, and he just couldn't go to bed. He's like, I'm not gonna stop watching this. So it was pretty awesome. So definitely spreading the word around about the series, because pretty incredible stuff. I do think that it is important that you mention the cost, though. I mean, because I think in today's society, I mean, I do stand-up comedy for a living, and also have my show, you know, but it's the world of free content that everyone expects you to give your work away for free, and they forget all the work that goes into it. And it is important to understand that, you know, when people pay for something too, it has more value at times. And so I think it is important to understand that, you know, in a perfect world, you're right, we can give all this stuff away. But in the reality that we're living in, the big work costs money, especially when you're on the fringes and you're on the outside of the quote unquote system. You have to really have some cash to be able to pull off the investigations that you're doing.
That's exactly right, and well said. And thank you for your support. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off there, but like I don't know if we want to talk about Watchers 9 at all, or because the Nephilim is like something I'm hyper interested in. I used to, years ago, I read this book called The Bible Code, but there's so much great stuff in this thing, whether it's the Torah Code and all this other stuff that we can get into. I don't want to derail Chris on if he's got like a plan of a course of discussion he wants to go on.
Okay. Plans. We just wing it. Okay, so we did watch the movie last night, and I watched it twice. So I just wanted to get as much information out of it as possible. Now, there's a lot of points that you cover in Watchers 9. There's chemtrails. There's the Jewish table of numbers. There's UFOs. The one big one, and we're going to say you went there, Muslim radicals, the Muslim community, ISIS.
Well, you know, what's interesting is if we go back to World War II, there was a man by the name of Neville Chamberlain who met with Hitler and had this little agreement with him, and they call it the White Paper. And Chamberlain landed back in England and waved the paper and basically told everyone, Hitler wants peace. There's nothing to worry about. Everybody can go back to sleep. We have a president who is basically afraid to utter the words radical Islam. We're not at war with Muslims. We're not at war with Islam, but we are at war with, or, you know, we should be at war with radical Islam that wants to impose Sharia, that believes in honor killings, that believes in female genital mutilation, where they cut the clitoris off a 14-year-old or 15-year-old girl, and she could never attain an orgasm. That's what we're at war with. And that ideology just does not, it is truly a clash of civilizations, as Henry Kissinger once said, but that's exactly what it is. And the fact is the media is already backpedaling on the Orlando thing. And, you know, it's a gay thing. It's a this thing. It's a that thing. The guy yelled Allahu Akbar, made an allegiance to ISIS. I mean, how much more, do we have to do? What people don't realize is that these guys are everywhere in this country. And I said this within 24 hours. I was on another radio show. Within 24 hours of the Orlando shooting, I stated on air, on someone's show, I forget who it was, on someone's show, and I stated, you know, San Bernardino's been a while back. We're overdue for something. And 24 hours later, bam. Whoa. Look, the malls are soft targets. The schools are soft targets. Anything with a gun-free zone, it's just like you might as well just go, terrorists, come right in here. I mean, literally. And it's amazing how the government, instead of addressing the problem, wants to legislate or abolish the Second Amendment. And most Americans don't understand what the Second Amendment was there for. It was there to protect the citizenry from a tyrannical government. The Constitution, the framers of the Constitution knew that absolute power corrupts absolutely. And they didn't trust government. In fact, Jefferson said a government is best that governs least. And that's not what we have now, where in this country, we are taxed above and beyond. You can't save any money. And there's a reason for that. If you can't save any money, then you need the government and government programs, and you have to rely on the government. There are 92 million people out of the workforce. There are 60 million people or thereabouts on food stamps. We are $22 trillion in debt, and we have a president who, out of all the things he could be focusing on, he could be focusing on the infrastructure, the $22 trillion debt, the 92 million people that are unemployed in this country. And, they say unemployment's at 6% nonsense. It's more like 25 to 30%. I mean, that's where it's really at. The fact that nothing is made here anymore, the crumbling infrastructure, which I've already mentioned, the roads, the bridges, the airports, the fact that businesses are leaving because of the onerous regulations in this country. And in the meantime, you've got a porous southern border where the drugs come through. Now, we can tap dance around that. And when I'm at conferences, I ask people, how many people in the audience have not had a family member in rehab, have not had a family member in rehab? Let's say you got 1,000 people. I may have 10 hands that go up out of 1,000 people, which tells me that rehab, no one could spell rehab a couple, 50 years ago. No one knew what rehab was. Now everybody's got a family member that's gone through it. Build the wall. Keep the drugs out. And for one more thing, Sanders, the fact that Hillary Clinton's even running is beyond the pale. How she's even allowed to run with the scandals that have plagued her career, Benghazi and all the nonsense with her husband and Watergate. I mean, it's beyond the pale. And then she sits there with the whole email scandal. She might be indicted. The fact that she's even allowed to run, if by some chance she's elected, and I got to tell you guys this, it's over for this country. We'll never recover. We'll never recover. Hillary's already stated she wants to up the debt over, another $1 trillion. It'll be abortion on demand until the kid comes out of the womb. Right before that, you'll be able to kill the baby, which is murder in my opinion. And I realize that's a very controversial subject, but that's where I fall in the debate. And we will have socialism. And all we need to do is look at Venezuela, which is absolutely collapsing at the seams with $175 to buy a hamburger. And this is where we are. So I kind of went off on a rabbit trail here, but these are the problems that we're plagued with. And I wanted to just one more thing before I close this rant out. Out of all the issues, I was trying to make a pointer that our president could focus on. And I just gave you a whole list, so I won't repeat that. What does he focus on? Transgender bathrooms. I mean, go figure. Seriously. Go figure. Do you realize how insane that is? We are plagued with real problems in this country, and radical Islam is a real problem in this country. And he focuses on transgender bathrooms. What can I say?
Yeah, it does seem like that the social issues, even on like a micro scale, can be used to really distract and divide people, to keep them away from focusing on, like you said, the major issues that are happening all around us. And they're doing a really good job considering how much bickering and argument and like how divided people are in labeling themselves. And I think this guy, Kevin Kelly, who's a scientist, he's got this great TED talk about evolution. He talks about how it tends towards specialization. And I think that's true with being able to using tactics to keep a general population, fighting amongst themselves. That also has to become more specialized over time because we catch on eventually, because there's people out there like you or like us out there trying to, alert people to it. So I wonder too, like when it comes to all these symptoms, all these things that are the problem, that these major issues and all these problems, especially the turmoil coming, it all comes down to a couple key issues more than likely. Like these are the symptoms of a greater illness that we're suffering. If you had to put like your finger on like just maybe like one of those, like the major things that's happening causing the rest of this stuff. You're talking about Clinton, if she's elected. I mean, that's just, like you said, beyond the pale. What would you say is one of the big things? I know in Watchers you were talking about how you do believe we're in these days. Is that the disease, and the rest of this is the symptoms?
Well, I honestly believe that this ancient prophecy, which was written 2,000 years ago, there's a punch list, and I talk about that at the end of Watchers 9. The bottom line is the punch list is very definitive, or very definite, very specific. Wars and rumors of wars, famines and pestilence, earthquakes in diverse places, troublesome times. And the earthquakes in diverse places is telling, because there's no way to track an earthquake. If you lived, let's say, in Israel 2,000 years ago, you would know about an earthquake happening in Japan. So the fact that it says earthquakes in diverse places, that's huge. That really begins to narrow the time frame down. And that only happened in modernity, and only recently in modernity. You go back 100 years ago, and there was no way to track any of this stuff. I mean, we had an earthquake in San Francisco, beep, 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 telegraph thing. Okay, I get it. Now my iPhone pings. I can set it for anything over a 6.0, and my iPhone will go off. I'll get a notification in my email box about any earthquake over 6.0. So we can track the earthquakes. We are in the midst of a cosmic regime change, in my opinion, and the God of this world, which has ruled this world, comes to rob, kill, and destroy. And so I think that we are at the cusp of seeing some astonishing events, mind-blowing events, unprecedented events come on this planet. And I think that the number one for me is the revealing of the so-called extraterrestrial presence, because that's a global game changer. Within 24 hours, everything changes. Everything changes. And I mean everything.
Well, just as Ryan and I were talking before we brought you on, is my discovery of the artificial intelligence, lifting of that artificial intelligence. Now, the artificial intelligence was governing over all of the ET, the reptilians, the greys. It was all there, and it's all lifting. So now we talk about disclosure. Well, disclosure has already happened. The video that you have on Watchers 9 of the spacecraft with aliens looking out the window. This is unprecedented to see that type of thing.
Well, I agree with you. And I think that, real disclosure, and I agree. I mean, I show that clip to people, and it's guys, it's amazing. I'll be at a conference and I'll show that it's called the Kumbergaz UFO footage, and it's from Dr. Roger Lear. And you get these statements from people like, oh, that must be Photoshop. Well, that must be fake. I mean, it's just like, okay, here it is, panning back, panning forward, panning back, panning forward. Here's the moon, there's the saucer, here are the entities. What about that? Don't we understand? And there's 5 hours of it. And people will look at that, and most of the time, you can hear a pin drop in that place. I mean, you can hear a pin drop there. That's how intense it is. But yet there are people who will look at that and still, LA, it's really interesting, but until it lands on the White House lawn, blah, blah, blah. And that's just how some people are. The bottom line is, if there really is formal disclosure at the UN or, Obama or whoever stands up and, says that we have been visited, we know we've been visited, we have been in contact with these beings, blah, blah, blah. I've always said that in my scenario, there's a nuclear event somewhere on the planet. A nuke goes off. And because the planet is now wired up via the satellite network, we'll watch the horror of it globally. We'll all watch it together. The enemy does everything in a climate of fear. That's how he moves. That's his currency in his kingdom, his fear. It's a fear-based kingdom. And so this would create a nuclear explosion anywhere on this planet, would create the greatest collective fear that the human race has ever experienced together. And this, I believe, would usher in the whole UFO thing, the extraterrestrials. And this is, the late David Flynn posited this years ago. We're both on the same page with this. And when they show up, they will say that they created all life on this planet, which ties right back into the whole neo-Darwinist panspermia idea, which is also promulgated on the ancient alien series, which is like, 8 years strong now, and on every Friday night with Giorgio and the guys, and they're all good guys. We just differ as to who's behind this thing. That's all. But we agree that we've been visited in the far distant past, but something is going on here, and we need to understand what it is. The bottom line is they'll come and they'll say that ET created all life on this planet. They genetically manipulated early man. They started Earth's earliest civilizations, our religions, and now at this critical juncture in human history, they are back to usher mankind into a golden age. And I think this is where it's going. When that happens, that's the game changer. And everything changes. Everything. And I think when that happens, I call it, and I've labeled it, the coming great deception.
So much deception going on with anything you talk about when it comes to conspiracy. If this thing lands on the White House lawn, they're going to say, oh, that's Photoshop. Oh, that's Hollywood. There's still going to be people look at it and go, nah, that ain't real. Even though it's sitting right there in front of your eyes, there's been so much wool pulled over our eyes lately. You don't know what to believe anymore.
Well, look, I get it. I mean, there's a lot of nonsense out there. I know that when I wrote a book years ago, 2007, it came out. It was called Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural. And look, I agreed with everybody that I had talked to. I basically went along with the party line at that point and believed that 9/11 was exactly what they said it was. And after I published the book, someone wrote me and said, LA, have you ever seen Building 7? Well, I had no idea what Building 7 was. And so they sent me a link, and I went there. And lo and behold, here's this building, part of the World Trade Tower complex, not hit by an airplane. And this thing crumbles, falls to the ground at free fall speed, which is impossible. And I knew that much. And I know when I saw the towers come down, I turned to my wife and I said, man, that really looks like controlled demolition. That's the first words out of my mouth. As they're collapsing, that's the first words out of my mouth. Hey, that looks like controlled demolition. But I went along with the party line. Just like my father, years before, who was in World War II, landed on D-Day, was a captain, 2 Purple Hearts and a Bronze Star. And the only reason why I bring that up is because today's his birthday. And had he not passed away 2 years ago, he'd be 96 years old. He believed in the Kennedy assassination. And the Warrens report, lone gunman Lee Harvey Oswald did the shoot, the magic bullet theory presented by Arlen Specter. That's what he believed. He couldn't imagine that the government he served under would lie or somehow create a classic Hegelian dialectic, or somehow cover up evidence. And now we know, looking back at the Kennedy assassination, that, in my opinion, and I've been to Dealey Plaza, and that's the thing. Until it's all armchair, a lot of noise on your end, guys. But Monday morning quarterback thing, wheelchair general type thing. But when you're actually at a site, when you actually go to Dealey Plaza, and I've been there several times, and the first thing I noticed how tiny it was, how small and compact the area was. And I was 13 when Kennedy was killed in Dallas, and looking at that, I was like, oh my gosh. And then I went up to the 6th floor depository. You can't go to the window where Oswald did the shoot. And there's a reason for that. Deliberately obfuscated because the stinking oak tree's in the way, but I digress. So they allow you to go to the window next door, which is about 20 feet away from where the supposed sniper nest was. So all I know is I pretended I was holding a rifle and I was sighting, and the car is moving away from me, and it's a really, really long way away. I mean, it's not a turkey shoot. I don't care if you got a scope on that thing. It's not an easy shot to make. It's just not. And the bottom line is, when you stand in the grassy knoll behind the picket fence and you look at the X where the headshot came from, and that baby is less than 60 feet away, and the limousine comes to a complete stop there, it's a turkey shoot. It's less than 60 feet away. I mean, it's a turkey shoot. There it was. Boom. And he's gone. So, and of course Oswald's taken out of the way, just like it's the same people behind it, in my opinion. It's the shadow government that runs everything. And who knows who's behind that? The world elites, but they manage and they control, and they count on the fact that the American people are too busy just trying to survive because of the onerous taxes that we all just gleefully pay every April 15th. And we're still, even with all the taxes, we're still $22 trillion in debt. I mean, could you guys imagine if you balanced your checkbook like this? You'd be arrested and thrown in debtor's prison. The government somehow can do it. I mean, this is how insane this country is. But look, Building 7 comes down, and that changed my worldview. I mean, that completely changed my worldview. I said, oh my gosh, this is an inside job. And now I found out that there's over 1,500 architects and engineers. These guys know, by the way, architects and engineers, they know that buildings don't fall at free fall speed, that there were demolition charges, nanothermite found in the buildings. Something's going on here. We need to get to the bottom of it. But, everybody you just kick the can down the road, and it's business as usual, and nothing changes. And, you would think the American people would rise up and go, enough, but they don't. And part of the reason why they don't is because they're lulled to sleep with endless sports, endless reality shows, and distractions, like you mentioned, which was the start of the question.
And fluoride and chemtrails and all that stuff in the food that makes you stupid. Yeah.
That's it.
Well, let's examine for a second the idea of, like, because I do want to kind of come back to the coming great deception as well, because the scenario you were laying out, it seemed optimistic on the surface. And when it comes to these people, the average American person, I mean, I think we were talking about this is a fear-based kingdom. And I think that's probably illustrated best in people not even wanting to have the conversation about 9/11 because they fear that they have to reassess all of their reality now, that we've been the good guys, like America, the knight in shining armor of the world. And then looking, 100 years, sometimes friends of mine will think, I don't know what they think about me. And when I tell them, I go, in 100 years from now, don't be surprised if historians look back on America as the greatest villain. Not the citizens necessarily, but whoever was pulling the strings. Now, do you think the coming great deception has like a nefarious ring to it, even though you spoke about the coming golden age? So is this going to be positive or negative in your opinion? What happens?
In my opinion, it's a very negative situation. What will happen was the planet will be enslaved under these overlords. There's just no doubt. We will see the rise of a global figure. The ancient prophetic text calls him the Antichrist. He will be the embodiment of this other particular entity called Hasatan, which is extremely intelligent. It's been around who knows how long. Very, very powerful being. And that entity, in my opinion, is the God of this world, little g, the God of this world. He's the one that's controlling and creating a lot of the chaos that we see and the instability in the world. I'm a frank supernaturalist, and I believe that the supernatural is more real. You talked about, I forget the physicist's name, we talked about the billions of one were not in a digital simulation. Chuck Missler talked about this years ago, the fact that if we are in a digital simulation, then it explains a whole lot to us. These entities, when they show up, and we can just look at the abduction phenomenon and just start there, because that's something that most people who listen to your show probably are familiar with. There's two schools of thought. One is that they're extraterrestrials from Zeta Reticuli. The other is that they're interdimensional entities. Jacques Vallée and J. Allen Hynek, both some of the founding fathers of ufology, believe in the latter, that they were, in fact, interdimensional. If that's the case, then all bets are off. Wherever they're from and whoever they are, they have the ability, the uncanny ability, to manipulate space-time and matter and energy in ways that defy our physics. Now, we would call that magic because it seems like magic, but they're manipulating because they can manipulate space-time, matter, and energy. They have found a way to do that. But these are supernatural entities that are, in a classic sense of the word, extraterrestrial, which means that they don't originate from this little blue ball that we're all sitting on and, breathing oxygen every minute of the day. They come from someplace else. and they have the ability to phase in and out of this dimension, which is a 3-hour conversation. I mean, that's a very, very bizarre topic to get into. Nevertheless, that's what they do. So this all hinges on the Darwinian paradigm, believe it or not. The coming great deception, the springboard for it is Darwinism. Darwinism states that there is no supernatural. Darwinism states that everything just evolved randomly by chance. There is no God. There is no ultimate truth. There's no purpose in anything other than reproduction. That's it. And even that, what's the purpose of that? No purpose. It just, this whole thing goes on and on and on endlessly. There's no climax. It's just all cyclical. Toynbee talks about that. There is no history. It's not climatic. It's just cyclical. This thing's going to go on and on and on. Well, when the co-discoverers of DNA, the deoxyribonucleic double helix of life, Watson and Crick discovered it. It was always there. They just discovered it. Crick became a vexed man. And Crick looked at the DNA and realized that, wait a minute, there's no way this thing just sprang into existence, because it's a very, very complex code, extremely complex code. And Crick realized that, wait a minute, somebody somewhere had to do something to create this thing. And that's where he came up with panspermia, the idea that we were seeded here by extraterrestrials. And this is exactly what is promulgated every Friday on the Ancient Alien Show. That's what they are saying. Ancient astronauts, these were the gods. And I agree with them. I mean, I can walk right down everything that they're saying. But when we get to the end, I just make a right turn and they keep going straight over the cliff, in my opinion. And that right turn that I make is saying, guys, these are not benevolent little happy ET guys. These are highly intelligent, malevolent entities that are involved in a cosmic war, which has been raging in an unseen dimension and is now spilling out over to ours. And because of Darwinism, it sets up the question, where are we? Who are we? What are we? And ET solves all that. Panspermia solves all that. And that's what the neo-Darwinists are pointing to. And so when they show up, they can basically say and do whatever they want to do, and people will believe it. And this, of course, has all been prophesied thousands of years ago. And it talks about this great deception, and it talks about that all signs and lying wonders. That's what it says. All signs and lying wonders. And that's not a little magic show at a kid's birthday party. So something is coming. And if it wasn't, look, if the saucer thing and the abduction stuff, if all that wasn't manifesting, I'd be looking for somewhere else, something else. But this is what's manifesting, and this is the ultimate game changer.
Right. Now, when you talk about the DNA as a complex piece of us, you're certainly right. One of the concepts that I work with on an energy level in the DNA is an area called the histone or the epigenome. In reality, I look at it as a USB port. If something is attached to this part of the DNA, it's going to program your entire body with that energy, with that frequency, with that signature. If you're a person with diabetes that just won't go away, there is most likely a program within the DNA of the pancreas or your entire body for that matter. And when I remove it, the big thing, and I always say the proof is in the pudding, when I do work on this, people feel a little shift of energy, and all of a sudden the problem starts to go away. The DNA is a very significant area that needs to be addressed, and it is very intricate. Now, let's go back a little bit, these demonic forces. Let's talk about Lucifer for a second. Lucifer is a very, very big part of humanity, and it's a very necessary thing to remove if you want to make any kind of changes within your health, within your life, within things going around us. Again, proof in the pudding, when I do make the intent to remove Lucifer, boom, all of a sudden pain goes away. All of a sudden people feel better. When we talk about this, you say you look in the Bible and you read about all this stuff. You read about Ha-Satan, you read about the devil, you read about all these dark things. There is, in my mind, some proof positive that these things do exist, and there is a dark influence. Let's call it a dark source over humanity, and that is what, in all reality, we are dealing against, because all of this dark force, this dark reality, is influencing the politician, the military, everything. It's all influencing everything at a very high level.
Well, look, and I realize, a lot of people have different worldviews, and people believe in one particular paradigm and worldview, and other people don't believe in that, and wars are fought over which paradigm is the correct one. I mean, it can get really, really crazy, and I understand all that. The reason why I hold to a biblical paradigm is because of the prophetic thread that goes from Genesis to Revelation, and that prophetic thread is called out with great specificity, written thousands of years ago. And so I look around, and that's why, Days of Chaos, Watchers 9, Days of Chaos. If this isn't it, then I can't read the signs and I'm clueless. But they seem to be, firing on all 8 cylinders. We seem to be headed towards a one world global government. Be very interesting to see what happens in England tomorrow, whether they actually exit the EU. My bet is they won't, because the elites will not allow it. On the other hand, sometimes things don't go the way the elites want them to do. And a perfect example of that, I'll digress here for a moment, is Trump. Trump was never supposed to enter this race. He was never supposed to do what he did. Certainly never supposed to be the presumptive nominee. That's what Jeb was about. It was supposed to be the House of Bush against the House of Clinton. That's what it was supposed to be. The same old nonsense that we've had for the last 30 years, 20 years anyway. And, that's what was supposed to happen, and it didn't. And that's why another lone gunman trying to kill Trump in Dallas or wherever it was just a few days ago. We're going to see more of this. They don't want him there, because he will actually right the course of this sinking ship. He will do it, in my opinion. If anyone can do it, this guy can do it. And he's getting a lot of negative press and all this other nonsense. But this guy is highly successful, very intelligent, and I've read his book. And you don't get to be where he is in life unless you've got a brain. And this guy's got an amazing brain, and he's saying the right things, where Hillary's talking about bigger government, raising taxes, more regulation, and not dealing with the issue. You talked about the Muslim immigrants. How do we know who's coming into the country? Well, there's no way to vet these people. And then somebody decides to strap a suicide vest on and blow some people away, or, go to a mall and start shooting, or, San Bernardino, the massacre in Orlando. I mean, and the only way, guns are not, rounding up the guns certainly won't solve the problem. The problem is addressing radical Islam, infiltrating the mosques and seeing if hate speech is preached there, coming to a grips that most Muslims in this country would rather defer to Sharia law, which is completely incompatible with the Constitution and our rule of law. So there is a clash of civilizations. And unfortunately, the moderate Muslims, there are far too few of them, but there is a group of them, and I've seen them. I've been to the site and talked, listened to some of what they say. And I have no beef with them. It's the radicals I do, that want to throw gays from the tops of rooftops and mutilate their daughters and force women to wear burqas. It's interesting that in England, in London specifically, they elected a Muslim mayor. Shocking. And already the guy is implementing Sharia, having the burqa clad women stand in the back of the rally. Telling people that, some of these ads are too racy. Oh, really? Which ads? I'm no prude here, guys. And I get it. I think women should keep more of their clothes on and take them off. I mean, enough's enough for this stuff already. I mean, would you go to your grandma's funeral looking like that? Thank you very much. Okay. So here's the deal. And I'm no prude. I mean, I get it. Women are very beautiful, but you can't legislate it. You can't do that. You can't go because I say, that we're not going to have advertisements like this. Nonsense. That cripples free speech. It cripples free enterprise. The pushback is when people go, I'm not going to buy that. It's like, look, Target was going to go, we're going to have transgender bathrooms in Target. And people went, well, no, we're not. We won't go to Target. We'll just start shopping at Walmart now. $10 billion later, and that's how you change it. That's how you change things. You can't legislate morality. You can't do that. It'll never work.
Yeah, it seems like the market will always make that decision for you, whether it was the Chick-fil-A controversy. And then when he reversed his stance, people were like, even the most progressive liberals were like, okay, now you stop boycotting it, please. You have to show these people that when they change their mind, it is financially beneficial for them. So now start going back, please. But it's interesting. I have a question about the thread of prophecy that is in the Bible when it comes to foretelling like the days of chaos. Now, if where is this coming from? Like this divine source of these prophetic words, is it? If in fact it is some very dark days ahead that it is outlining, is it kind of like this entity or these beings like messing with us? Like, hey, we're going to lay out a plan for you and a little bit of a puzzle. And once you figure it out, you're going to realize how bad it's going to be for you. Is that what's happening here, or is it from a lighter source?
Well, it's the source that's behind this. And look, this is like a 3-hour conversation. I mean, it really is. And this is part of it's a subject of a book, which I'll probably start on sooner than later, like a supernatural worldview. But to try to answer that, there was in the far distant past, there was some sort of a split. There was some sort of a rebellion, for lack of a better word, in another dimension. And that rebellion had incredible ramifications in this universe. It basically set everything into chaos, and which is why the very first words in Genesis talks about, the earth was without form and void, toho evoho, and that to me speaks of a cataclysm happening on this planet. In fact, the universe. The asteroid belt. I mean, all sorts of weird stuff is going on here. But everything's chaotic. And then there's some sort of a recreation. I believe that mankind is extremely new on this planet, extremely new. And I mean, 6,000, 10,000, 12,000 years old, very new. Whatever date it is, it's very, very extremely new. And, it makes sense. It's like if we were here for millions and millions and millions of years, well, why didn't the population grow the way it did in the last 10,000 years? Hello. It's like, it just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, now we've got 7 billion people. You can trace it back and back and back, and you can see that, what's over here? Well, let's build a boat and we'll go see. Okay, far out. I get a little papyrus boat here, sail out the Mediterranean. Voila, I land in Barbados. Where's Barbados? I don't know, but nobody's here. Looks like a pretty good place to vacation. Let's stay. And that's what's going on. But, now it's like 7 billion people, but you just go back 500 years and like there was, people were curious, but the population has just expanded and expanded and expanded and will continue to expand. So I think it's the recreation is very, very new. Based on that war, the fact that we are at war, that there's these two entities which are fighting this cosmic war. There's a passage in Genesis 3, which is incredibly telling, and I believe it sets up really what's about to happen in the rest of the biblical prophetic narrative. And it states this: the seed of the serpent will be at war, at enmity with the seed of the woman. And you say to yourself, what the heck does that mean? Well, it means everything. The seed of the serpent fully manifests 3 chapters later. And you remember in the ancient Tanakh or the Torah, there were no chapter headings. I mean, you just kept reading. They've done that for ease of reference. That's why there's chapters. But in the original Torah, it was just no breaks. You just read. And so in Genesis 3, it talks about the seed of the serpent will be at war, at enmity with the seed of the woman. 3 chapters later in Genesis 6, we read the sons of God, which in my opinion are the fallen angelic hosts, see the women of earth, desire them, go into them in a sexual way, have children by them, and these become the Nephilim, the soulless ones. And this is the reason for the flood. That is the open manifestation of the seed of the serpent's seed manifesting on the planet in ways that are unprecedented. But here's the rub. Yeshua tells us it'll be like the days of Noah when he returns. What differentiates the days of Noah is the serpent seed and the manifestation of the serpent seed that we read about in Genesis 3. So with that in mind, is that going on today? You bet your booties. All we need to do is look at the abduction phenomena and the hybrids. We keep hearing about hybrid entities manifesting hybrid. I mean, and people have written me, they've seen them. I mean, I know several people who have had an encounter with a hybrid entity. What the heck is that? Is that a modern-day Nephilim? Yeah, that's what a modern-day Nephilim is, in my opinion. Not giants, not necessarily six fingers, but there's a supernatural connection. They may have powers of telekinesis, mind reading. They may be able to, move objects, whatever. I mean, whatever's going on here. But so it's similar. It's similar to the days of Noah, but not exactly. So the serpent seed war has been going on for millennia. But the seed of the woman manifests in Messiah about 2,000 years ago. And the prophecies that surround Messiah are just too numerous to mention here. I mean, they're written a priori, thousands of years in advance. But see, a lot of this is obfuscated by religion and, gold domes and stained glass windows and monks with funny haircuts and rosary beads and, stinking incense and candles and altars. None of that's supposed to be there. That's all invention of men, period. It's just gobbledygook. It's nonsense. None of that's supposed to be there. But that's what we have today. And, it's just nonsensical. Meanwhile,
when the Messiah comes, are we going to know it?
I think Messiah already came, and that's why the prophetic thread is so interesting, because everything that he did. I think one of the most astounding, and I'll just digress a little bit here, the astounding evidence of that, and we covered this in, I think, Watchers 3, was the Shroud of Turin. And, people say, Marzulli is just a Catholic relic. It's a forgery. It's a rag. Once again, armchair Monday morning quarterbacks, armchair generals. It's like do some research before you start popping off. And I spent a lot of time looking into the Shroud. We interviewed Dame Isabel Pixek, who's a particle physicist, a world-class muralist, about the Shroud. We interviewed the Right Honorable Barry Schwartz, who was knighted for the country of Portugal for his work in photography in 1978 with the STURP, Shroud of Turin Research Project team that examined the Shroud for 120 hours. And I mean, these guys, this is the evidence. Now, you got to think two things here. The first is that Schwartz, who's Jewish, has no dog in the hunt, just says this: it's not a painting. It is whatever produced the Shroud was not by the hand of man. We are looking at something that we don't know that produced the image on the Shroud. Dame Isabel Pixek, the particle physicist, and you mentioned this earlier, she says there was a singularity. At the point, there was a singularity in the tomb where the Shroud enwrapped this body of a crucified man. There was a singularity. The body was literally split in half. It floated above the tomb. The Shroud was pulled taut, and the body dematerialized in infinite points of light, which left the impression on the Shroud. The bunkers have tried for decades to duplicate it. And it's just, Joe Nickel gets up there and, he's got a little Shroud thing. I'm going to make my little cloth here and I'm going to squirt some lemon juice on it. And he holds the thing up and goes, see, here it is. Joe, it doesn't look anything like the freaking Shroud. Come on. I mean, it looks like just this blob on a cloth. When you look at the Shroud and you look at it, when Secunda Pia did this, and he almost dropped the plate this goes back when he's, photography, not digital stuff. You got plates and you got a dark room and you got chemicals. So he takes his picture of the Shroud and he's got the face plate, the headshot, and he's got it on his lap. He's looking at this thing and the image comes up and it's like, it's the face of a man. And he almost drops the plate. He goes, oh my gosh, what's this? And he realized that the image on the Shroud was in fact a photographic negative, which means when you take a picture of it, you get a positive image. Huh? How is that possible? How does a forger know? I mean, it just goes on and on and on. The scourging is incredibly brutal. And it was done with a Roman flagrum, which had 3 thongs on the end of it. And you can see the 3 All this is forensic stuff that's in the shroud, which is just mind-blowing. You see the blood and water of the Billy Rubin coming out of where the soldier pierces the side. I mean, which is like just unbelievable, so barbaric anyway. This mixture of blood and water comes out, the Billy Rubin, exactly what what scripture tells us happened. I mean, he's pinned there by not, most artists will have a nail going through the palms. You can't hold a person through the palms. Romans put it through the wrists. They put it through the wrists, and that's where the shroud shows it. It's through the wrist. And it just goes on and on and on and on. I mean, it's just, and that to me is, I call it God's calling card. And that changes everything. And here's what's interesting, guys. Pope John Paul allowed a German textilist to go in and supposedly, quote, restore the shroud. She steam cleaned it and vacuumed it, thereby destroying any other forensic evidence ever being able to be conducted on the shroud. And she also stretched it a couple of centimeters so that the image is now distorted. You think that's deliberate? Hello.
There's lots of people out there that don't want humanity to know the truth about things because they are scared about humanity finding the truth. If you do lots of research on the Vatican about their library, how vast it is, and people are not allowed to go down there. I mean, this should be the Christians' library to go down and see what's down there. I mean, they pay enough money it's the richest city in the world, for crying out loud. You think they should allow them a free pass once in a while?
Well, I mean, I had a sort of a Paul on the road to Damascus experience 36 years ago. My life changed radically when I said, and at the end of Watchers 9, and we've never done this before, and we probably won't do it again, at least for a while. But after 9 episodes, and 5 years of making these things, I look right at the camera and I say, if you think you know him, talking about Jesus, if you think you know him but you don't know him, then you don't know him. And that's the bottom line. And it's like people think they know who he is, but, do you have a personal relationship? Well, no. What's that? Okay, well, then you have no idea who he is. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then you don't know what I'm talking about. And people think they know who he is. Or, I've tapped into the universal Christ consciousness, LA. Well, that's not it either, pal. Let me tell you right now. That's not what it is. And so, I mean, when if it was any more complex, human beings could not do it. It's real simple. We say, okay, I do stuff in my life that I don't want anymore. I don't want to do this. I'm sorry for it. So I believe that you died in my place. I believe that your death on Calvary cleanses me of all that. Don't ask me how that works, but okay, I'm going to believe it. And I believe you're the Son of God. And I'm not even sure how that works, but I'm going to believe it because that's the only 2 requirements I'm supposed to do. I'm going to believe in you, even though I don't see you and don't know you. And I'm going to say, okay, I've done some stuff which really stinks. Please forgive me. Okay, great. Now what happens? And this is where it goes right off the rails into the supernatural. Because here's something to think about. God had to come down on Mount Sinai to Moses. That's the old covenant. That's before the Spirit was freely given to men. Moses was not indwelt by the Spirit of the living God. John, the Revelator, who wrote the last book of the Bible, the book of Revelation, went up. And the reason why he was able to enter is because he was filled by the Spirit of the living God. He went up into the heavenly scene and was told, write what you see, write these words. 2 completely different ways of communicating. So when a person receives Yeshua or Jesus, and it's different, it's like snowflakes. Hi there. But with snowflakes, they're all different. I mean, they are. Go figure that. It's like, well, it doesn't make any sense, LA. If I was going to make snowflakes, I'd just stamp them all out and make them all exactly the same. It seems like a lot of effort that these snowflakes look completely different. This is an incredible waste of time. And yet every snowflake is like, wow, it's different. I mean, how does that work? I don't know. I have no idea, but they're all different. Billions and trillions and gazillions of snowflakes from the creation of whatever. And apparently they're all different. How does that work? So it works different. He never does the same thing twice. I guarantee you that. I've been walking with him for 36 years. I know from experience. He never, ever does the same thing twice. He won't do it. It bores him, I guess. I don't know. But he never does the same thing twice. So if you pray something and he answers it, oh, I found the key. No, you haven't. He just answered that one thing because he's not going to work the same way. He never does. So what happened to me 36 years ago was unique for my situation. I had a mentor, Wayne Kendall, when the cockeye hit the fan within 24 hours, boom, this man really guided me through the next year and a half, 2 years of my life. Very, very dark. Most darkest period of my life as I was coming out of one kingdom, as it were, into another. So when I say if you think you know him, but you don't know him, you don't know him, I mean, I'm talking from experience. And when the spirit of a living God goes into a man or a woman, everything changes. And what's absolutely astonishing is when he speaks to you or me, and he does. And that's where you go, well, LA, maybe you should be seeing a psychiatrist about that. Are you hearing audible voices? No, I'm not hearing audible voices, but I have heard audible voices in the half awake, half dream state. You know, I've heard that. And I've had 2 times, like John the Apostle, taken in the body or out of body. I do not know. I was in another place for about 3 seconds both times. And what I saw there was astonishing. And I've talked about it numerous times. So, you know, I've learned what a pastor once said, mind the checks. The Spirit of a living God can direct a person, can tap them on the shoulder and say, go here, do this, stop. And it's not like this foolproof thing. It's not like well, maybe I'll go to Vegas and the Spirit of a living God will tell me which number I should bet on the roulette wheel. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. But I'll tell you something.
If it did, well, boy, we'd
all be down there. Yeah, exactly. Oh, what number now, Lord? No, it's we're taking out the implant in Watchers. What was that? 8? Watchers 8. We're taking the implant out of Bill. All right. So it's Richard Shaw and myself, and we're in the operating theater. Dr. Roger Lear, who's no longer with us, which is a great loss. Dr. Matriciano, who's the head surgeon. We got nurses, we got administrators, we got about 10 to 15 people in another room watching the proceedings on, you know, closed circuit TV, nice big monitor. And we've got Bill laying there, and we've got the x-rays, and we know that the thing is there. We've seen it. And Dr. Matriciano's got an ultrasound wand, and he takes the x-ray, makes a little mark on the guy's leg like he did 2 weeks earlier, and he starts trying to find this thing. Can't find it. Can't find it. And we're there for an hour and 20 minutes. Can't find it. The Gauss meter, which worked no problem and showed that this thing was emitting 8.0 milligauss, is just like not working at all. The stud finder is going off all over this guy's body, which is wacky. So we're going like, you know, what's going on? Matriciano's getting frustrated, going, well, maybe we should get another x-ray. And Dr. Lear goes, no, we know it's there. And he was right. You know, we knew it was there. And we can't find the thing. So I'm looking at Richard Shaw. He's looking at me. And I get the cosmic tap on the shoulder. And because I've learned what that voice is. Not an audible voice. I get the tap on the shoulder. And basically he said, you need to take authority over this. You need to pray. You need to do it now. So when I say prayer, you know, people immediately, some people conjure up, you know, nuns and Dominus Vobiscum, you know, and all this crazy stuff. It's not what it was. And I just said, okay, this is going to sound really weird. Remember, I'm in a room full of people that don't have the same paradigm and worldview that I do. So you got to navigate through that. And I just said, okay, it's going to sound really weird, but I'm going to pray and I'm going to do it now. I took authority over the room. And this is all I said. Father, if there are forces which are cloaking this device, I pray that you would break your power and do it soon. Now, I'm not making this up. Less than 2 minutes later, the image appears on the ultrasound monitor from the back of the screen from like nowhere, like it's been cloaked.
Wow.
It just goes whang, and it just comes into the front, and everybody goes, oh my gosh, what's that? Matriciano is so freaked, he's tapping the end of the wand, putting it on, putting it off the patient's leg, putting it back on the leg, taking it back off, tapping the thing, looking at the monitor going, I don't understand what's going on. Richard and I look at each other and we start cracking up because we know exactly what's going on. We know who showed up and who was greater. So look, that's just one example. I mean, it's ongoing and it never ceases. I mean, it just that's how and every guy on this planet that's spirit filled, it doesn't mean we're perfect. It's anything but that. We're in the process of changing. And quite frankly, and no one's ever done a study on this, I believe that those who are filled with the Spirit of a living God, their DNA is changing on some level.
Well, I mean, you do hear the phrase transformation a lot of times that people use, whether they're specifically talking about this in the same terms or not. But like, would you say that this is a good example on a smaller level of why that there would be hope? And when it comes to this battle of, when the split happens and this cosmic battle is taking place and, the coming days of the Great Deception, is this indicative of one side the good side being more powerful than the bad side, and therefore gives us hope as opposed to just being filled with despair?
Yeah, we are in the midst of a cosmic regime change, and it's going to change. It is definitely going to change. One of those places I was taken in the body or out of the body, it was about 35 years ago. I was getting ready to go to bed, and I was just pulled out. I mean, just out. And I find myself in this weird place where I've never been, and I'm in this huge throng, this great throng of people, and we're in a horseshoe. And in the center of the horseshoe is open, okay? And in the center of the horseshoe, way out in front, is a rider on a white horse. I don't know what I'm looking at. And I'm in this retinue, this huge throng in the shape of a horseshoe, and I'm on a flying white horse, like everybody else is. We're all on flying white horses. And you can't make this stuff up. There is no saddle. There are no reins. I'm holding on to the horse's mane. And I had the instant realization that this horse could turn upside down and he would never let me fall off of him. I mean, that was, and I don't like horses, guys. I'm not a horse guy, okay? They bite, they kick, you never know what they're going to do. And I mean, I'm there for 3 seconds. And I'm in the upper right, about 8 rows back, not the top row, and the armies are stacked in the horseshoe formation, one upon another, 20, 30 feet between, one level and I don't know what the distance is, but the armies are stacked up like that. And we're flying into Earth. That's what we're doing. I'm only there for 3 seconds. And, when I remember going, to my pastor, I'm going, this really weird thing. I don't know what happened. Well, what was it? And I tell him about, this thing, and he looks at me and he goes, well, have you actually ever read the book of Revelation? I go, no, what's that? And he takes me to Revelation 19. And Revelation 19, and I can't read it because I'll lose it, but the bottom line is Revelation 19 says, and the rider on the white horse with the armies of heaven, all clothed in white, basically come down to earth and they kick butt. Finally, this thing is over. The craziness that we have seen on this planet for thousands of years, it's over. Finally, the regime change happens at that moment. That's the hope. That's what we're all looking for. That's what we're all jumping up and down. Let's get the rider on the white horse here. And enough of this nonsense already. And look, this system sucks. Why is it? I mean, it does. The whole global system is just like, well, we're going to kill you now, jihad. And then the North Koreans are firing missiles and Putin's down in the Middle East, and the Arabs hate the Israelis and the Israelis just want to live, and then now the Iranians want to nuke Israel, and the Indians hate the Pakistanis and vice versa. And the Japan's worried about the North Koreans and Venezuela, $175 hamburgers down there. And, you fly to Brazil to go to the games and you get held up at gunpoint. I mean, it's just like, come on.
And get Zika virus.
Yeah, and get the Zika virus. Thank you.
Last night, watching Watchers 9, they talked about gematria, the Jewish tables. Now, there's a lot in there that refers to what's going to be possibly happening, right?
The gematria is really, really interesting. And, and I find it, look, there was this thing way back thousands of years ago called the and the Thummim. And this is beyond science fiction, guys. I mean, it really is. It's just like you look at this stuff and you go, the Bible is the weirdest book ever written. But the high priest, and this is why we're in this other dispensation than what happened thousands of years ago. That worked then. That was the dispensation that worked then. We were in a totally different dispensation. I don't need an and Thummim, which is the breastplate of the high priest with stones with letters on it that light up if I ask a question. I don't need that. I can ask a question, and if I ask and keep asking, sometimes I get it. Most of the time I get an answer. All right. So that was what worked thousands of years ago has been replaced because the Spirit of the living God now indwells people, which, hadn't happened before. That's what's different. So with that in mind, when we look at what's happening on the planet, something's about to change. And gematria, while it's interesting, should never usurp the actual written word in the Torah or in the Haftorah or in the New Testament. Because what was written there, we believe, has been divinely inspired. It's not just some guy on magic mushrooms, in a cave someplace. Well, I think I'll write this. It's not what we're looking at. And that's why the prophetic words are about a third of the entire text of the Bible. About a third of it is prophecy, which is really incredible when you think about it. So gematria is really interesting, and gematria is the study of every Hebrew letter has a numerical value to it. Okay? And when you look at those words and you begin to work gematria and add up the letters and see what it adds up to, and you combine that with the Torah codes, it can get extremely interesting. And it does. But again, to me, it's very, very simple and very plain. A 13-year-old, if you read wars and rumors of wars, famines and pestilence, earthquakes in diverse places, troublesome times, many will come in my name and saying, I am the Messiah. Don't believe them. Men faint from fear for what is coming upon the earth. It's like, okay, I can understand it. That's really straight ahead. I don't need a special code or software program or anything else. It's written in plain English and I can understand it. And the idea, the Bible was changed at Constantine 300 years until, blah, all that nonsense. Look, we've got ancient manuscripts that go back before that. That's what's so cool about the Dead Sea Scrolls, because nothing's changed. Okay? Nothing's changed. Nobody inserted anything, or took away anything. And that's just what we got. And it all works, and it all, kind of dovetails together. And, that's why I believe what I believe.
Yeah, it's all very fascinating stuff too. Like I also wonder when it comes to like all of these, guideposts or codes, and you mentioned it earlier, we're talking about DNA coding. It reminds me of like mathematical formulas. These things always exist. We just discover them. So when it comes to all of these things, like this intricate design that was designed on purpose, for us to maybe reach a certain level of intelligence to where we can start, decoding it and deciphering it. So now that we're at that level, is that one of the key components of understanding that these things are now unfolding?
I think it's just another sign that we are at the end of one particular age, about to enter into something else. It just can't continue like this. It just can't. Everything is firing on all the prophetic signs are firing on all 8 cylinders, in my opinion. And I think we're headed towards a climax. I'm not a date setter. I had a really interesting, Spirit of a Living God deal, and I just want to share it with you guys because it might, who knows, okay? Not a date center, but I found this really interesting. So he gets me up one night around 2:30 in the morning. And this doesn't happen every night, thank God, but it does happen. It just seems like, okay, let's wake Marzulli up and give him some information. So that's what happens here. And it's like 2:30 in the morning and I'm awakened and this is what I get. What's 9 times 2? I was sitting there going, and my first thought is, wait a second. You wake me up at 2:30 in the morning and ask me what 9 times 2 is? It's 18. Then he goes, what's 1 plus 8? 9. And I'm kind of going like, what? I'm kind of ticked off, actually, if you really want to know the truth. It's like, what gives here? Why a math quiz at 2:30 in the morning? He goes, okay, what's 18 times 2? I go, 36. What's 3 plus 6? I go, 9. Oh, that's kind of far out. What's 36 times 2? 72. What's 7 plus 2? 9. Okay, now he's really got my attention. What's 72 times 2? 144. What's 1 plus 4 plus 4? 9. What's 144 times 2? 288. What's 2 plus 8 plus 8? Once again, it's 18. And 1 plus 8 is 9. Now I couldn't multiply that times 2 in my head anymore. So I go, that's as far as I got. And I go, okay, I get it. And I wake my wife up and I say, we got to remember the number 18. Usually I get up and write it down because I've learned if you don't write it down when it happens, you'll forget the next morning.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah, it's gone. So I got up the next morning, immediately went to the computer. What is the biblical significance of a number 9? And it's judgment. It's judgment. And 2016 adds up to the number 9. And I just find all that interesting. Now, he gives me the number 9 and tells me judgment is coming, but there's no date. He doesn't go on September 20th, 2016, the earth will split in half. It's not what's going on here. It's just something's coming. I don't know what it is. I think judgment is on the way. I don't know what that looks like. Interesting how they're talking about a lot of activity in the San Andreas Fault. Someone else emailed me recently with the America being split in half along the New Madrid fault line. I mean, other people are getting the same type of thing. So we'll have to wait and see.
What I get of judgment, the messages that I get, California is the devil's playground. Mm-hmm. Judgment of what? Most likely judgment of dark energies, dark forces that are around us. We have been run by all these dark entities, dark forces. You call it what you want, Satan, Lucifer, the devil, demiurge, whatever you want to call it. That has been what has been here. I mean, if God was here running things, do you think we'd be in such a shithole? I don't think so. So there has to be a very dark connotation. There's got to be a polarity shift of what's happening here. And I do believe that the judgment is going to be on what has been using humanity as slaves, using humanity as a plaything, using humanity as a food source, using humanity for whatever they felt they needed for that time of the day. I think that's where the judgment is going to lie.
Well, and I agree. I think it's coming. And when they show up, it goes full circle. It goes right back into the coming great deception. This is it. When they show up, we will be under this system where, and it talks about this prophetically, where no man can buy, sell, or trade. But what's even more pernicious about this, I think this so-called mark of the beast is a DNA changer. It changes the host's DNA. So you're not human anymore. You become something else.
Wow.
Definitely, yes.
Is there anything in the prophetic thread of specifically the Bible that you've been able to uncover that therefore, or that then explains, like you were talking about the dream on the white horse in the horseshoe with the army? Now, after that, when that happens, is there anything that outlines like what then existence would be like?
Yeah. Apparently there's like 1,000-year reign. And I think this is going to be really interesting. I just sent you guys a link on the Shroud, by the way, for the steam cleaning, so you can check that out yourself. Unbelievable. But we know, again, prophetically, a couple of things happen here. And it really reads like a sci-fi movie. I mean, it really does. It's like, what? Okay. So the kingdom is set up. But then there's a passage which says he rules the nations with a rod of iron. Well, that doesn't sound like a lot of fun. But I understand why he does it, because when he comes, the earth is in absolute chaos. And he puts down this whole satanic hierarchy, which is rule the government, ruled this planet, let's say, not the government, but ruled this planet for thousands of years. And he takes this fallen cherub and binds him in a place called the pit, the abyss. And I think it starts off, the planet is really in chaos. A lot of stuff's happened. And I think that we're going to have a lot of cleanup. That's the first thing. There's going to be a lot of cleanup. And one of the questions that I pose to people is, how much technology comes with us into this 1,000-year reign from Jerusalem? How much technology comes with us? How is it going to interface so-called supernatural events with what we have here? Look, and I realize some of you guys are out there, and you're laughing and you're rolling your eyeballs and you're going, Marzulli has just taken the blue pill. He's completely off his rocker, flying white horses. This is crazy stuff. Okay, I get it. What if it's real? What if it's real? I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, there's a whole story that goes with the flying white horse thing, how I got that, because I didn't understand it. And it was like my dad had just passed away, so it's like 2 years ago. And I'm laying in my childhood bed back in Pennsylvania, and I'm just going to sleep, and I'm thinking about, the vision that happened 30 plus years in the past. And, the Spirit of the living God begins to speak. And we're having a conversation, which doesn't happen every day, by the way. But when it happens, it's really cool. And he goes, you remember the vision? I say, of course. The flying white horse, absolutely. And then he drops the bomb on me. I had never thought of this before. And he goes, that horse is yours. And I still don't get it. Because I don't like horses. I'm not putting it together. I'm going, okay, the horse is mine. Great. Far out, I guess. And then he goes, and that horse can fly. And that's when my light bulb went off. It's like, wait a minute. I get a flying white horse? You have got to be kidding.
Now I like horses.
Yeah. When can I just see him? Can I? And now I'm like a little 8-year-old. And then he says something which made me weep. He goes, and that's the Father's gift to you. That's the Father's gift to you. I mean, we all go through this at Christmas time. I want a pony, right? That's what we all want. So here we are. And I think the flying white horse people become, because we're here with them. I think we're kind of like flying around and helping out. I really do. Okay, Marzulli, I want you to go to Djibouti. We've got some problems over there. Go there and help out. Help clean things up. Okay, right. Got it. And off I fly to Djibouti and spend, 2 or 3 weeks there doing whatever. I think that's what we're going to be doing.
Here's what I work with a lot of people is that in our soul, we have what's called a dharma or a soul purpose.
Sure.
And as humans, if something is going to happen on this planet, it has to be done through us. Somebody isn't going to come and do it for us. Something is going to give us the energy or the insight or the intuition to go ahead and start something, to do something. It has to be done through a human. So we all have a certain type of dharma. And I do find some interesting stuff within people. Today I found within somebody's dharma, in their soul, it was the cave of secrets. So lots of different things come together within people, and it works through their energy, through their soul, through their intent. Now we can make it happen. We're humans. We have the ability to manifest. That is what the other beings don't have. Human beings have the ability to manifest things. So can we consciously make it happen? Yes, we can. Is it done every day? Yes, it is. Mass people meditating, lots of different groups meditating the same thing over and over again and trying to change the energy. And it does work in certain ways. And you can certainly see it in certain instances, that the power of intent. And that's how my work is done, through the power of intent. People get healed here every day. It does work, and it's all done through intent. As humans, we can do it. As humans, we have to do it. There's absolutely no other way it's going to happen. The propensity for it to happen is going to be given to us through the higher sources, through God, through all of that is there to help us. So you want to call it the universe, you want to call it the law of attraction, whatever, our higher self, that's where it's going to come from. So we have to be aware of the signs. Just like your white horse, LA, is a sign of something. It means, oh, you've been given a tool. You've been given the possibility to make something happen. And we need to pay attention to that and put it to work.
Yeah, it's all really fascinating stuff. I love the idea that what if it's true, or what if it happens? I do believe that it's more fun to believe. So that really rings with me, LA, when you say that. So it is fascinating. Also to have I don't want to say utopian. I don't want people to think, necessarily that it's not stark, but a clear utopia. But nowadays it seems like most people are focused on dystopia when it comes to, movies and all these kinds of things. It seems like most people are focused on the dark. So it is interesting to, cause you really put yourself out there, like you said, when you fully talk about the things you believe. There's bravery in that. And it's refreshing to hear a bright belief in the future.
Well, yeah. That's what I just think that, this planet has been held by a force, and that force has a name, Hasatan, and we're in the midst of a regime change. Interestingly enough, Newt Gingrich on Bill O'Reilly a while back talking about Trump stated that, well, they don't like him because he's not part of the secret societies. And these secret societies are real. There is a cabal of men and women who have given themselves over, for lack of a better word, and to put it in the vernacular that most people will understand without sounding religious, the dark side. They've gone over. You look at the blatant occult symbolism in our Super Bowl halftimes, and on it goes. It's incredible. The Masons are everywhere. My grandfather was the master of his lodge, 33-degree Mason, way up there, and that's a whole 3-hour discussion too.
It is.
Yeah, it really.
There's definitely it's something interesting. A couple of years back, I wondered to myself, like, were the Masons on hard times? Because in Ohio, where I was born, I live in California now, but I was in Ohio visiting, and there was a Freemason.com billboard. See what it's all about. See what the secrets are all about. I was like, are they advertising now? I thought that was so interesting.
Pretty cool.
Like,
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, they're desperate. They're desperate.
I mean, LA, I don't know if we have time to talk about it because I think we're probably getting close, but like towards the end of Watchers 9, there was a lot of Planet X talk. And I think since that one was put out, the whole Planet 9 phenomenon has surfaced with the scientists discovering what they believe to be another planet in our solar system. I was wondering if you had any chance to will that be in the new edition coming out, or was that too recent of a thing?
Yeah, we're not really doing anything with Planet X. We kind of covered that in, I think, Watchers 4, and then again in 9 with Gil Broussard. And Broussard said, well, we should start to see it in September 2015, and if we don't, we're going to see it in March of 2016. And now he's redone the math, and it's going to happen in 2017, not May. It was supposed to be March of 2016. Of course, that came and went. I'm not a big fan of Planet X. It's one of those things that I know about, keep it on the back burner, keep up with it. But it's like, I just think it's a red herring. I think there's other stuff which is really manifesting, which we need to keep track of.
I think it's a distraction.
I do too.
Distraction. Yeah. Okay, that's all the time we got on the show tonight. We could have gone another 3 hours for sure. Ryan, I got to thank you for joining me tonight. It certainly was pleasant to have somebody bounce things off of and to help out here. L.A. Marzulli, always a pleasure to have you on. I love your videos. Please go to L.A. Marzulli's website, and you can order all his videos. He's got lots of stuff on there that you can order, and they are very, very high quality. You're not going to find a better, entertaining bunch of information on the internet, that's for sure. This has been a wonderful edition of A Quantum View. I am Chris Kehler. We're going to see you back again in 2 weeks. Thanks for joining us, everybody.